grow hard about what you want to be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.
Welcome to Tales from the Field. We are back and better than ever. This is the last show of the year. Thank you so much for all that you've tuned in for this year. If you're here watching the show, whether it's live or via recording, you are a part of the Tales from the Field family. And this year, what we are thankful for is you. Last week, let's get straight to it. Daniel Taylor published, oh no, dropped a database, how to restore a deleted database from Azure SQL Managed Instance. Then on Tuesday, we had our Azure Data Community Roundtable, and I published on Wednesday, Microsoft Fabric Copilot for Data Factory, ETL and date dimensions with plain text. Then on Monday, Daniel Taylor was back again with how to enable TDE on a restored database in Azure SQL Managed Instance. So much to do, so much to see. You don't want to miss a thing. If this is your first time finding your way over to Tales from the Field, give us a like and give us a subscribe. We drop content every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. On Monday and Wednesday, we have our MS Tech Bits. That means it's Tuesday, and it is the Azure Data Community Roundtable. And of course, if you want to get involved with the show, it is so easy to do so. We are streaming on the hub for Tales from the Field over at YouTube. And all you have to do is make a comment on the stream, and one of my amazing co-hosts will see that, and they will add it to the screen. Speaking of those amazing co-hosts, I am, of course, joined by Mr. Andreas Padilla, Dan Taylor, the man typically in a hat, but this time in a polo, Mr. Josh Luedeman. And there are some great combinations in life: peanut butter and jelly, milk, chocolate, and peanut butter, and this man's voice in our ears. Of course, I'm talking about the one, the only Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri. A quick call to action. This is the Azure Data Community Roundtable, and the reason you are here is to be a part of the community. So what do we want you to do? We want you to make sure you join that community. So head over to the Azure Data Community website over at Microsoft, find a local user group, find different activities, conferences, blogs, videos, all the wonderful stuff that makes up the community, and participate in that community. And of course, once you go find a local user group and you can do some in-person or some remote interaction, what do we want you to do next? We want you to head over to SQL Saturday, SQLSaturday.com, which is where you can find free training for Microsoft employees, MVPs, and some of the top people working in the community. Also, I want you to keep in mind that we've got Atlanta coming up in April, and we've got Jacksonville in May. And why do I solo out those two? Well, it is official. We took a vote, and Tales from the Field is going to be submitting to those. And hopefully we will be there celebrating with you in person in Atlanta and also in Jacksonville. After you've gone to SQLSaturday.com, where do you go next? Well, you want to head over to Data Saturday. Data Saturday is where you can find the different virtual events in your area, again, put on by Microsoft employees, Microsoft MVPs, participation by the top people in the data community, sharing and helping you to learn. Just great and fantastic stuff. Speaking of fantastic, if you're learning, you're definitely wanting to learn Fabric, and you want to head over to our LinkedIn page in Fabric Learning. And you want to make sure and join. We're at 1,677 members as of today. Thank you so much to everyone who's joining. We pull content from there. People post blogs, post videos, and the product group helps us with our interactions. All right. Well, I was going to say, we're going to get straight to it because there is so much for us to get to. We are on a chock full show today with so much interaction. And of course, if we're going to do that, what am I going to do? I'm going to start with, just the unbelievable best thought person that I could come up with, Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri, introducing Microsoft Copilot Studio and a new feature in Copilot for Microsoft 365. What do we got going on here?
So a nice article by and the whole Copilot, right? I mean, I've been on calls. People have been asking, what is Copilot, or what are the Copilot available, in which features are available. So I just found this article where you can go and it describes you all the Copilots that were announced during Ignite, and the features that were updated available in there. Copilot for Studio, Copilot for M365, Copilot for Teams, and it gives you all the features in there. Something that would give you how to use it. I mean, definitely people are confused at how do I use it or what is going to be beneficial. There are also some short videos in there that can show you how to do the Copilot or enable your Copilot in your environment that can help you build up the Copilot part of it. One of my friends during the weekend, he was like, "Oh, you guys have built this Copilot, but how do I use it?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is how you can use it," and that's why I forwarded this link to him.
Oh, I love that. No, that's fantastic. Again, I always love the links that my co-hosts bring, especially when I didn't have it. And there's a couple products in there where I know we have Copilot integration, but I just haven't had the time to be able to work on this and play around with it. That is definitely going to be something that I tune in for later. Speaking of something that I tuned in for, well, I turned into our Fabric channel, and of course, I found Mr. Rui Cavallero, who is doing a ton of wonderful blogs, and I thought this one was really great. Mastering Dynamic Data Masking in Microsoft Fabric, a comprehensive guide. So if you're looking at Microsoft Fabric, you're storing data in there and you're looking at how do I utilize data masking? How can I understand dynamic data masking and what is the scenario we've got? Well, he has wonderful scenarios and he's got end-to-end great combinations of showing you code and then showing you what the results are that you're going to get, how to be able to apply the mask column, how to be able to go through and get partial results on social security numbers, things of that nature. I remember a long time ago working for an organization where I was the DBA and they were really worried about me accessing the data. We were building a HR platform and all of that data would be very sensitive. And one of the concerns they had was me as the DBA accessing that data while we had to build the system. And at that point in time, there was no way to decouple that. I told them, in order for me to be able to build the items that go along with this, I've got to be able to see the data. This functionality that we have begins to give that separation of duty and roles so that way our DBAs can do what they need to do, build what they need to build. Our data professionals and engineers can access that data, but we don't have to worry about are they at risk of having access to public personally identifiable information that could put our end users at risk as well. So great stuff. And speaking of great stuff, there's great things that we have in life. And then there's also times that are a little bit harder in the holidays. I know that in the holidays, sometimes I've had a hard time because we've got a dear friend that we lost a couple of years ago, very near to this time. And that always is something at the top of my mind. And when I saw this in the list, I thought, how very appropriate that we should put this at the forefront because while the holidays are a very happy time, they can also be a sad time for some. And so, Dan, I thought it was very emotionally intelligent for you to put this in there, working through grief during the holidays.
Yeah.
Talking about what we have right here.
Yeah. Dr. Suzanne Davis-White put together a great article here. Not going to go into it in depth. Just want people to know, go out and read this. If you've lost anyone during these holidays or during a holiday, great article tells you kind of what you can do for yourself, but what you can do for others. And there's folks out there right now that I know are grieving, and our hearts are with you, and our hearts are with each other. So during the holidays, if you're grieving, we just want you to know you're not alone. I get really ornery sometimes this time of year because of the grief, and we all display our grief differently. But go read this article. I think Dr. Suzanne Davis-White did a great job, short but sweet. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If you're having a hard time, remember, reach out to the people that you love. And that's the most important thing you can do. I know that in the times that I found difficult, Dan and Josh, I have relied on both of you. And I know that we as a group, we share with one another. And it's a wonderful group that we built over this last year. But remember, if you need someone, reach out because chances are you're not alone in what you're feeling. And the fact is, wherever you are, whoever needs to hear this, you are worthy. And you should repeat that to yourself because you are worthy of love. You are worthy of great things in your life. So moving on, let's hop over to technology again. And of course, I need to bring us back up. And who's going to do it? Well, it's just the most electrifying man in, well, not sports and entertainment, but we got to say electronic media. It's going to be Mr. Andreas Padilla with evaluating index chunk size for a RAG system using index. What do we got going on here, Andreas?
Size matters, fellas. Size matters.
Size matters.
So,
yeah.
We got a great little article by Ravi Theha. Thank you for putting it out there. This is an ongoing question that we're actually attending to from customers from all over that are, jumping into OpenAI is how to make, your searches more relevant, the precision, actually getting more precise with your searches. Chunking matters when it comes to getting better relevance, better granularity, response time generation. The response time, because the bigger the chunk, the longer it takes. So sometimes it serves itself to actually chunk your data into smaller pieces, but that means that you're giving up something, speed for precision or speed for context. He shows us in this article how you want to fine tune your chunk size to make sure that you're getting the right level of performance and you're getting the right level of precision. And he goes through 3 different chunk sizes to give you average response time, fast response time, and slow response time, average faithfulness, average relevancy, and he shows you through metrics, the different types of chunk sizes that are going to give you that sort of nice middle ground that you want. So if you are concerned about your performance and the relevance of your searches when it comes to OpenAI, read this.
Excellent. I got to tell you, wonderful stuff. And when I think of wonderful stuff, of course, it brings me to this next person, rocking something all the way from New York City. Of course, I'm talking about Mr. Josh Luedeman, Mr. Radio City Music Hall himself, performing change data capture of MySQL tables using SQL Think. This old thing that you picked up last week while you were in the city.
I mean, my wife and my daughters made me get it, and I was like, that's fine. I mean, it's really the only real memento I kind of came back with, just the hoodie, and stuff, nothing else.
Yeah, that's wicked.
That's it. Wicked. Totally wicked. By the way, 20th anniversary. Anyways, this great post is again kind of, rewinding back. If you remember, couple of weeks ago, I shared about the announcement of Azure HD Insight running on AKS now. This is a great blog from the PG where they actually go through setting up change data capture with MySQL flowing into HD Insight, which is a common architecture pattern we've talked about before with Fabric as well. This is another way to do it, using the Flink cluster within HD Insight and that functionality to then create a CDC architecture with MySQL, how you would set it up. Does a great job of helping you set up the table on the MySQL instance, deploying HD Insight, all of that, and then getting this all set up so that the change data capture captures the changes in MySQL and immediately uses Flink to dump those right into a data lake under HD Insight. Great post, all the code there ready to go, and a good explanation and links about, to give you more information about HD Insight, Flink, all of it.
Excellent. Right. I was going to say you had me at hello. And speaking of things that capture the mind and also the heart, of course, I'm talking about the one, the only Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri. Microsoft Fabric Real-Time Analytic Odyssey Navigating an Unexplored Terrain. Neeraj, what do we got here?
Nice article by Ilya Raja. He just goes over how the real-time analytics was. I mean, in the beginning stages, just shows how it was evolved from Data Explorer, and then it went to Synapse Explorer, and then become the real-time in the Fabric Explorer up there. The best part of it, what I like about this article is showing the architecture, how the real-time analytics works, but then the real key pillars, right? If you go in there, it shows you the real-time analytics key players, which is advanced storage engine, optimized time, native support for data, low latency, and ad hoc queries is what usually the people are looking for as a part of it. And then out of there, the evolution of Kusto query, I mean, KQL is the game changer for real-time analytics, where you can definitely get really fast on getting the answers back. And then when to use real-time analytics, which is definitely something that I liked about it. And then some use cases that he has also mentioned up. So IoTs, big data, I mean, Andreas, you are always on just things, but yeah, this is something that you definitely, and which industries they are using it up. So nicely written down, is broken down in all different ways how real-time analytics in Fabric can help you in your day-to-day life.
Excellent. Excellent. Really, really nice stuff. Speaking of, when I found this, I was completely blown away. I love, and we often refer to our good friend Kevin Chang because he does so much with DevOps. I love seeing this one from Reza Rad. Reza breaks down version control in Power BI and Fabric. And what he's doing is he's using source control, he's using Azure DevOps. One day I'm going to find the time to be able to get back to Azure DevOps. I did so much with it with Synapse. I'm really looking forward to the day that I get to dig into this a bit more with Microsoft Fabric. But what I loved was this, being able to show the different trunks, branches, merges, and tags, and then the process that you go through. He walks you through getting a sample project, getting things together, and beginning to walk through this. And of course, you know what I love. I love not just a blog with wonderful detail and wonderful images to be able to walk you through the process. I love it when you have a video as well. And so Reza has that. He's got a whole bunch of fantastic videos on his YouTube channel. You definitely want to make sure and check him out. But this was just a great addition to thinking and working within a DevOps mindset, which I find to be critically important. And also, speaking of critically important, of course, I'm talking about the mountain man, Mr. Dan Taylor, with a great blog by our good friend Aaron Bertrand. Don't use distinct as a join fixer. What do we got going on here, Dan?
So it's been a while, right? I don't write as much T-SQL as I used to. So I was like, and I can't remember, either Neeraj or Karthik, who we all know. We're talking about a client needing to remove distinct from a query. And I was like, you know what? How would I do that? That was you, Neeraj, right? I was like, let me go out there and see. Well, Aaron here goes through and talks about using exist as an alternative to using distinct, which is masking your logic error essentially behind the scenes. It goes through several ways of how the exist could perform perform in a poorer fashion, but goes through different ways to rewrite it. And basically the conclusion is distinct is masking some of your logic errors to remove that duplicate data. So I found this a great article by Aaron, and hey, you gotta get a refresher sometimes, and this was a perfect refresher for me.
Well, Aaron Bertrand is top mind. I mean, he's just a wonderful person. As a matter of fact, I was talking about him just the other day when Nico and I were on the phone talking about some of the stuff with great stuff that SQL MI is talking about. Aaron's name came up, and he's just one of those great people. And I love good technical articles like that. But what I love even more is oftentimes people will say, here's an issue with some type of code that you have in SQL, but they don't necessarily walk you through what the fix is, or how to be able to rewrite statements to be able to use the fix. And I find that's critically important. You got to have that end to end. Aaron delivers on it. And speaking of delivering, of course, when I need somebody to deliver, I call on this man. And you know who I'm talking about, right? Of course, I'm talking about Mr. Andreas Padilla, smart load balancing for OpenAI endpoints and Azure API management. Talk about delivering. Andreas, what do we got going on here?
You know who delivers? Andre Duez delivers in this article. This is a question that we're getting from multiple customers time and time again. How do I balance scalability? How do I balance reliability? What are my options when I have OpenAI and I have multiple instances of OpenAI? OpenAI only has certain, it's an endpoint. It's an API endpoint. I can only send it so many tokens, and I have to wait for a response. In that time that you wait, milliseconds maybe, but you may be sending it multiple requests, and it might start to throttle on you. And OpenAI might say to you, hey, guess what? You're going to have to wait, and I'm going to give you back some 429 error code because, I got to wait for your response, your request to get fulfilled. What Andre Duez shows us here in this article is how to pair multiple endpoints of Azure OpenAI, put them with an API management policy, use some retry logic so you can get closer to being like, okay, if I have one OpenAI instance that's slowing down and I'm really pushing the limits, okay, now I want you to send the next request to next Azure OpenAI instance and doing it intelligently. You know, we're used to seeing it as round robin. What he's doing here is using the HTTP status codes, the 429 errors, bringing those back into an API management policy and saying, you know what? Okay, this OpenAI endpoint is being throttled. I'm going to go to the next one and the next one and see where the most appropriate endpoint to send the next request through an API policy. Solid gold with this article. This solves a lot of problems for a lot of customers that are dealing with scalability and reliability issues in Azure OpenAI.
Well, and that's a fascinating look, right? Because as we've worked with models, as we've learned things, and as we work with customers, it's these scenarios that everybody needs to understand. These are going to be the things that become much more common, that will start to lay down templates. When people start to work with OpenAI, it's going to be how many requests would you like to use? What is your user base? How would you like to serve? And then how are we going to load balance this? Fantastic stuff. I love it. And I especially love it because, you can't help but imagine how are we going to build those architectures moving forward. And that's a key thing that we're going to be using. And talk about key, of course, I'm talking about the one, the only, the Mr. I love the fireworks, man in the hat, Josh Luedeman, with performance dashboards for SQL Server enabled by Azure Arc, now in public preview. Josh, what do we got here?
Well, not only does, Andres keep getting the intros that are obviously meant for me, then as it's my time to share an article, he upstages me with fireworks. So I'm going to try not to take that personally. But in all seriousness, though,
I was going to say it's hard not to, but he's got $1 million smile, right? So you can't stay mad long.
Yeah, mine's like 5 cents. People want it back when I smile. So, performance dashboards in SQL Server enabled by Azure Arc is now available in public preview. It was a feature that actually came out last week. I didn't get a chance to put it in my links for last week, but this one right here. And frankly, as an avid supporter of Azure Arc for a long time now, it was one of the things that I've been waiting for to get into, into Azure, the Azure portal. When you're onboarding a machine to Arc-enabled SQL servers, was a better collection of metrics and being able to put that into the portal. What this does now is it actually gives you, that capability to actually push those through and more thorough set of them. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of this and get out there and start kicking the tires on it, because, now I think this opens up a whole new set of value for customers to onboard their on-premises and off Azure SQL servers to Azure Arc.
Absolutely. Artfully delivered. And when I think of, art, I think of something that is high quality, that delivers value. And of course, it's the art of the presentation. And I'm thinking of Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri, the art of data warehouse recovery within Microsoft Fabric. Neeraj, database recovery, we're talking, BCDR here.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, pulling at my DBA heartstrings. What do we got?
So a nice article by Ambika. She's one of the PM PG for the data warehousing. She shows you how to restore in place, right? As a DBS, Dan, Brad, you guys have always worked on the DBA part of it, where you want to definitely have a point in time to restore. So by default, we do every 8 hours point in time restores, and you at any point of time you will have 42 different system generated resources point of that. But you can always create your own restore point, and then she shows you how to set it up. And there's a prereq that you need to go through it, and then she goes over how to set that up. Also, she's showing you how to delete your user-defined point-in-time restore also. So a couple of commands, she has given all the commands in there. She has shown up step-by-step how to set this whole thing up, including deleting it up. Restore the data warehouse and also she shows you how to restore it up in any point of time. Restoring is definitely the key of it. For any DBAs out there, they definitely want it to be available for them at any point of time. If the data is corrupted or data goes wrong, they can go back and restore it up to get the right data. So that is definitely something that was introduced in Fabric. last week.
That's absolutely exceptional. People
Yeah.
have been wanting something like that for a really long time out of different data services when it comes to large scale data warehousing, and the capability to have that is massive. I'm looking forward to playing around with that. Uh, when I saw this article, I immediately jumped on this because, of course, it's Data Mozart. We know it's Nikolai Ilya, and Nikolai has mastering the DP 5600 exam incremental refresh. So one of the things that you need to make sure that you understand, I mean, we talk to people all the time who have large scale data warehouses and they want to import their data. And I was going to say, Andreas, what's our favorite thing to say? If you're not first, you're last. They want to go faster, baby. Everybody wants to go faster. So how do you go faster when you got your data warehouse reloads? Well, you do an incremental refresh. It's a lot faster if you're taking a small chunk of that data and you're bringing it up versus if you're doing a dump and a load every single time and you got to pull everything into the warehouse. So Ilya, this is a skill that you need to know, but he covers this. Nikolai covers this from a exam point of view for DP 500 and the DP 600 exam, making sure that we understand the process of loading updated data before the cycle, why we want to use an incremental refresh. And we want to make sure that we understand these things, why they are so beneficial. And then he goes into the incremental refresh in Power BI, and making sure that we understand hybrid tables and their features and functionality. All of this is absolutely wonderful stuff. If you're looking at getting these certifications, or if you're looking to understand a little bit more on why you should use incremental refresh, because we sometimes take for granted, right? We learn something and we assume everybody knows it. Well, not everybody knows. Everybody's got to learn. None of us started out knowing everything that we have right now. We are an incremental combination of what we have learned over time. Even Josh, I mean, his hat game it's increased, it's improved. And speaking of, you want to get better, you want to continue to increase your skills. Well, of course, you're going to listen to this man, Mr. Daniel Tiller, with Skytap on Azure, configuration, hub and spoke network topology, and site-to-site connectivity. Dan, what do we got here?
Yeah, and I may have jumped the gun on sharing this article because there's a previous article, but what Dave goes through here is a way to set up Skytap, which, if you're not familiar, Skytap allows you to migrate your IBM AIX like power systems into Azure with very little code upgrade, right? So you use the Skytap on Azure to migrate your IBM AIX systems. And right here, Dave goes through and shows us how to set up our hub and spoke network topology on this through Bicep. And I thought this would tug at Josh's heartstrings at the end of the year because I said the word Bicep and infrastructure as a code. It's a really great article. If you're migrating your IBM AIX with Skytap, great article for you to reference here. And it allows you to eventually connect to your other Azure resources in the cloud, making it easier to modernize.
Well, I was going to say it was fantastic. And the other thing was this headline, and this man had me at the headline. And of course, you know, I'm talking about Mr. Andreas Padilla, $0 embeddings OpenAI versus free and open source. Andreas, what do we got going on here?
Oh my God, this is by Greg Richardson, aka the Rabbit Hole Syndrome. You heard it here first. This guy is the author of great hits like Why Is Your Internet Slow and Embeddings 101. And today, this nugget of how to know the differences between open source, OpenAI embeddings, and when to go and use which one. In this video, it's an hour-long video, but it's worth it. He talks about Embeddings 101. He talks about open source models and the benefits and limitations of those open source models. And this is a question we've been asking internally lately is, you know, Azure OpenAI, open source. Open source is a great, you know, they got some really awesome models out there, and we don't want to, you know, toss them aside because there's a lot of benefits in them. He talks about what are the popular open source models that are out there. What else? He talks about self-hosted. If you wanted to self-host your own models and even run directly in a browser, and how to actually use them. He talks to us about different embedding models. There are some benefits over some models over the other. There's, you know, some models are better in different use cases. If your use case involve input sizing, dimension sizing, outputs, those are all considerations of when to lean into certain open source embedding models. And he also talks to us that embedding models are not just used for search, they're used for clustering, classification, re-ranking, retrieval. Great video to showcase the power of the open source embedding models that are out there.
Excellent stuff. Excellent. And speaking of excellent, the last but not least and last of the year, we go over to the man in the hat, Mr. Josh Luedeman. And Josh, you've got always on availability groups for SQL containers on Kubernetes. Wow. Linux Kubernetes containers. Give it to me, buddy.
Yeah, this is an awesome article, and it's a follow-up to a session that was delivered at the past summit this year. And Amit Kandawal goes through and talks about the private preview of the DX operator, which is basically allowing you to deploy SQL Server running in containers as a high availability group, which, for me being, I'm one of those that keeps talking about all these fangled open source stuffs and Kubernetes and things like that. For me, this has been something I've been watching for since SQL Server came out on a container. And I believe it was with SQL Server 2017, but Brad is the version expert and Brad and Dan will double check me and say if I'm wrong. But this walks through the whole thing of what you need to do and configuring everything on the Kubernetes cluster for deployment, talks through the whole piece, and then even shows you at the end a deployed, yet, in this case, empty, because we didn't go through putting in a database in it, but putting in just a basic plain empty database into the availability group. Yay! One step closer to, being able to do SQL Server absolutely anywhere in any scenario.
Excellent. Well, great job in wrapping things up for us, Josh. Thank you, everyone, so much. We are at the end of the year. What a fantastic year it has been, and you are the biggest part of that. We want to thank you so much for joining us, for being a part of the weekly roundtables, for checking out the content of these wonderful creators. Thank you to the creators for what you create. A very, very happy and safe holiday wishes to every single one of you out there. You're a part of the family if you're watching this, and we hope you have a great year. All right, for Daniel Taylor, Josh Luedeman, Mr. Andreas Padilla with the balloons and the fireworks and all that great stuff, and Mr. Neeraj Jhaveri. Josh, you got something?
Merry ho, everybody.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know what to do with that. So with that, we will see you next year, everybody. Take care. We're off for 3 weeks. We will see you on January, I think the 8th or the 9th. All right. Take care. Be good to one another.
I know that I like to do it 'cause it's sensation. I live my life in my head like a